Hi there. Hi there. Are you there? Are you really there? Am I here? Is this gonna work? It's a mystery. It's a mystery. We're gonna try it out. From my little room on a hill in Mexico. How does it go? Hi, Michael. How do you do? How do you do? You've seen this view before, I know. It's nothing special. And it's not the greatest lighting on me, but it's the easiest. So, there's already 4 people here, so I'll start, it's fine. Somebody asked me today, what was my food situation here? Like, what did it cost? What did I eat every day? Blah, blah, blah. And a couple other people have asked me questions about, like, what do I do here? And other kind of just quotidian things, which is kind of interesting. You know, a lot of us are interested in quotidian things. So that's mainly what I'm going to talk about right now. And of course, you can ask other questions. So yeah, I arrived here it looks like it's working. So I arrived here in middle of February, and it was full tourism. The beach was packed with people. There are tons of restaurants on the streets, tons of restaurants in the back street, which is like there's a main street. The only thing I had to compare this with was the beach towns I went to in Thailand and Cambodia last year. I have never been a beach bum, oddly enough. It looks like I could be. But when people had said, oh, you should go to Thailand and just rent a hut on the beach and do yoga every day for 3 months and it costs like, nothing a month. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I could do that though. That might just drive me crazy or bore me or something. Although I don't generally get bored, but still, like I didn't think that was me. However, after trying it last year in Southeast Asia, maybe one of the things that really helped me along was the first beach I went to. I had really bad dysentery when I arrived, so I had zero energy. Yeah, works right now. I had zero energy, and I was in such a beautiful place, and the water was really calm, and it was warm and lovely and peaceful. So I really didn't have any choice at first to do nothing. Literally, like spend the day sitting in my hammock and staring at the water and occasionally jumping in and then laying around. I mean, that's really all I did. Although I did meet these 2 beautiful gay boys from Berlin who were there on their honeymoon. And I just thought it was so cute. They were like I think they were in their 20s and they just got married. And they had that kind of relationship that I find so foreign, that they're like, oh yeah, well, we're totally monogamous. And he's only the second person I've ever had sex with. And I'm like, what? Although one of them had been a slut, but he no longer was, at least for a while. And it was just really sweet to spend time with them, and we'd occasionally go for hikes together, but it was really easy to do nothing except like chill. And then the second island I went to, I had just come from an 11-day silent meditation retreat, so it was even easier to do nothing but nothing. Like to just sit and meditate. That's when I was practicing Qigong for like 3 hours on the beach every morning, because it was just nice to be in that meditative flow, listen to the ocean, and then jump and swim around. And the beach there was so calm and so shallow and so long and so warm that I could hang out in it for hours without doing anything. So this beach is another story. It's cool, the plus being that it actually cools the temperature down of the body. However, the waves are really ferocious and rather quick. So I remember when I was in it earlier, I counted it, and it was like every 5 to 12 seconds. So 12 seconds was the longest break I ever got from getting hit by a wave, and generally the wave would throw me. Like the waves are really strong here, and there's a big current, and there's this story about how lots of people have died here. So this was not that kind of relaxation. Also, the places I went in Thailand and Cambodia had no main street. It was literally like walk through a path through the jungle or drive a little scooter along a completely deserted road, although there was a little town in the middle of the island. 2 little towns, actually. But the place that I was staying, there was nothing. I was like on a nature preserve in the north part of the island. So there was nowhere to walk to except on the beach, and then you could see the hotels from the front. So this threw me for a loop, as it were, right away, because there was a main street, and then there was a street behind that had like a cinema, and there's just a lot more going on here. And again, the first weeks I arrived, there were, the first weeks I was here before the COVID panic hit here, there were lots of party places. So like people smoking pot and reggae playing forever, and various places along the beach where there were DJ booths set up. Like, so there was lots of noise, and again, as you can see, I have a view of the whole beach here, all the way to the other cove. So the sound from these parties would roll across the sea and up this hill and right into my room when I had the window open like this. So it wasn't as peaceful, and I wasn't actually as like in love with it. I was like, well, this is a nice experience. I really love being able to walk up and down the beach naked. I love that there's a gay culture here. There's like a gay bar. There's a second gay bar that wasn't really active very often, but sometimes was. And there's gay cruising implicit in a couple places. And there's a long history of sex and drugs and partying here, which is actually not really my thing. So, although I was happy to spend the month of February and early March relaxing here, because, you know, I've been traveling and doing lots of whatever work in New York City and here and there, and I just thought a month of being alone in a peaceful place would be nice. But then, of course, that's turned into 3 months or more. And when I first got here, I had lots of options for food. Now there's only a few restaurants open. So also, the first month, maybe probably the first 6 weeks, yeah, it was pretty awful. But for me, you know, and again, Joseph, I wrote about this in my longer plague notes, or plague journal notes. The first, I don't think it was the first weekend, I think it was the second weekend I was here, there was an all-night rave. And the all-night rave, again, the sound of it echoed up into my room. So while I was sleeping, the walls were vibrating. It was all the way on the other fucking side of the beach, and my walls were vibrating because of the bass coming up over the sea all night. So I didn't sleep, and I was very pissy in the morning. They shut off the music after dawn. And I talked to a girl who had been coming here for 20 years, and she's like, yeah, sometimes it's just a couple like coked out guys sitting around a DJ table. And then I yell at them and tell them to shut it the fuck down. But if they keep me up all night and I go down there and there's actually a bunch of people partying and having fun, I'm like, that's cool. You guys have a great time. And I'm like, that's a nice rule. If they're having a good time, that's good. If it's just a couple coked out guys sitting around a DJ table and there's nobody there, tell them to shut it the fuck down. But that only happened twice. And then a weird phenomena happened because the beach has been changing. Like the sea has been taking the sand out, and it acoustically changed something. So I kept thinking I was hearing the rave because there was this accelerating echo that would go, which sounded to me like a rave, and it was vibrating the walls, but it was actually the water hitting a blowhole or echoing between rocks. I don't know what it was, but I noticed that there was no longer raves happening, and I was still hearing this sound, and I was like, oh, interesting. But that now has passed. Anyway, so there were lots of really nice restaurants on the beach that I had a boyfriend the first 2 weeks I was here. Is he logged on? I don't think he's logged on. Oh, my boyfriend. I had a boyfriend for 2 weeks. He was a Canadian. There's a lot of Canadians here. And we met, I think the first day I was here. We had some pretty good sex, but more importantly, we just like connected like old friends. You know how that is, right? Like we'd known each other a long time, and it was like, oh, hi, great. And for the most part, we just spent all day together for like 2 weeks, and then he left, which he had previously planned to do because he was traveling with another friend, a female friend who had her boyfriend with her. But the first 2 weeks were very different because I had this boyfriend, so I had this companion, and we didn't really leave. I mean, he did go somewhere else 1 or 2 days, but I didn't leave for the first month I was here, I don't think. I think it was a month. I just stayed in this little beach town. But it was nice. While he was here, we would pick different places to eat, different people. And there were quite a few different men here who, especially the first week I was here, I was cruising a lot of different guys on the beach that I found attractive. I was just so happy to be in a place that had this nudist culture, and there was a gay culture, so I could assume at least some of these men were naked or were gay. And of course, the type of men I'm attracted to, most of the guys that I would approach and be like, you're really hot, Do you mind if I cruise you? I actually said that to a couple people. Do you mind if I cruise you? That was the boyfriend that I had here. That's what I said to him. Do you mind if I cruise you? And he loved that as an opening line. But most of the people I did that to were straight. And some of them wouldn't tell me they were straight. They would just be polite. And maybe they just thought I was a crazy drug addict or something. Because there's a lot of that here. And I look like a crazy drug addict. But I actually haven't done drugs for years now. Kind of. I had some coffee earlier today, which I was telling the guy who gave me the coffee that I don't usually sleep well for 3 days after having coffee. And he was like, well, if you have it at night. And I'm like, no, this coffee's delicious. I had it with a chocolate croissant. I was like, but I probably won't sleep well for a few days. And I was wondering if I would be like this talking today, and I am. So the reason that I'm talking really is because I had coffee today. So yeah, some of the guys that I became friends with, that I wouldn't say I became boyfriends with, that I became friends with, the gay guys I became friends with, they would say, hey, we're all getting together at this table or at this restaurant. There's a Allen Ginsberg poem called America, and he's not referring to coffee or drugs. Maybe he's referring to drugs or coffee, but he's referring to work as far as I'm concerned. The line is, I don't want to get a job. I'm nearsighted and psychopathic anyway. But I apply that to a whole bunch of things in life. Like, I'm nearsighted and psychopathic anyway. I don't need to do that. But that's just being poetic and cute. So anyway, the first month at least I was here, again, before the pandemic spiral hit, I was regularly having dinner with different people. Either this boyfriend, my vacation boyfriend for 2 weeks, and then other people that I had talked to. But even then, what I was trying to do food-wise, because it's hot as fuck here, it's gets down to like 75 at night and gets anywhere from like 88 to 92 or something during the day. And although the temperature remains kind of stable throughout the whole year in that range, the humidity levels increase greatly as we get nearer to the monsoon season. And the just intensity of the sun increases as the summer comes on. So, yeah, it's so hot here, and similar to as it was in Southeast Asia last year, that I don't feel I need to eat a lot. I'm not a breatharian or anything, but I've always had this idea that you need to eat because your body has biological functions that it needs fuel for, and if you are in a place that's very hot, there's two factors happening. One of them is by osmosis. By solar power, you're just receiving all of this radiant energy, and your body feeds off of that somewhat. At least I believe so. And secondarily, there's so much heat that your body doesn't need to heat itself. And that uses up a lot of food fuel. So in colder climates, that's one of the things that people are like, why, when this flu season's over, why does the flu season happen? Is it the ultraviolet light of the sun? And I'm like, I don't think so. I think it's more along the lines that when it's cold, when you're in a cold place, your body has to allocate a lot of its energy to keeping you warm enough so that everything functions. And it can't allocate the same amount of energy to supporting your immune system, for instance. And so your immune system is just naturally more stressed because your body's allocating more energy to the function of keeping your body alive in a temperature way. Whereas if you're in a hot climate like that, it doesn't need to do that. So it can devote energy to other places. So I would mostly, and this again is something I did in Thailand last year, I would just eat fruit in the morning when I arrived here, and I would eat like a very light dinner if I could at night. And literally sometimes that was one taco. Like there's a taco place that I like going to, the Dolphin. It hasn't been open for weeks now, or a month or something. But you could get a plate of 5 tacos for 60 pesos, which I guess is about $3. Or you could get one taco for $2 that was maybe 3 times the size of one of the smaller tacos, and it would have cheese kind of cooked onto the tortilla, and then beef and cilantro, onions, and avocado. And to me, I was like, that's enough for dinner. If I had a lot of fruit in the morning, like bananas, pineapple, papaya, then that was enough for me at night. I would have like one of these fat tacos. There's a food here I'd never encountered called tlayuda, which is a Oaxacan specialty. It's like a big flour tortilla that they put beans, they fold it in half, and in the center they put beans down, and then I usually would get it with beef and cactus, nopales. So they put the beef and the cactus in there, and then they put some quesillo, which is the local white cheese here. It's a little sour. And sometimes they put avocado and tomato in it as well. And that was actually quite heavy. Sometimes that would feel like too much to eat, but I'd eat it anyway. Sometimes I would eat, as the longer I stayed here, I noticed I didn't like eating late at night, so I would eat, if I could, like after my boyfriend left, after my vacation boyfriend left, I would eat, if I could, late afternoon before the sunset, because then I would sleep better if I wasn't full at night. Then, I guess after the first month I was here, right around the time that the coronavirus fear spiral started to happen, a German artist showed up and stayed 2 doors down from me in the even more dramatic, desperate looking housing situations here. And he literally spent all day painting. He went down to the sea, I think 3 times in the 3 weeks he was here. He was just up here painting. And we occasionally went and ate something. But he also liked to go into the towns, because he'd come here for many years. He'd come to this area of Mexico for many years. So we would take the camionetas, which are like a pickup truck with this big thing attached to the back of it that has seats that people can sit on either side, and then bars you can hold on to, and a little bell you ring when you want the guy to stop, and it costs like 10 pesos or 20 pesos, which is less than $1, 50 cents or $1. And we went to a couple of the nearby towns, and so at those places I started buying other foodstuffs. And that gave me this idea when I came back here that I didn't need to eat cooked food every night. So I started changing up my diet to, and I found other places to shop around here too. There's a guy who, he still does this, but I don't go out at night. I haven't been going out at night very much lately, and we'll get to that in a minute. But there's a fruit and vegetable shop in the corner of downtown here that's kind of expensive. I would say every grapefruit is like $1.50. No, is that right? No, it's like $1 or something. Every grapefruit's $1, which sounds like it's not expensive. But for here, compared to other fruits, it is expensive. And I like grapefruits, but I was buying grapefruits from them. They didn't sell avocados, which I thought was really interesting. They had tons of different fruits and vegetables, but they didn't sell avocados. I never have had access to a kitchen, and the place that I'm staying was never reliably a restaurant. There was a story that I told about the food that I was just eating fruit in the mornings the first few days I was here, and then I think like on the 3rd or 4th day I thought, okay, well I'll try the restaurant for lunch today, and I walked up and the woman who was managing everything at the time, who I've had some difficulty with, she, today's her birthday, she said, oh, you know, she was cooking something for other people at that moment, but she was like, I don't have time to cook for you right now, so you're gonna have to go out and eat today. I hope that's not a problem, you'll be fine. And I was just like, so I didn't try to eat there again for quite a while until the German showed up, and the German was having coffee or breakfast every morning with her. So one day I sat down to eat breakfast with him, and she brought us both orange juices, and then when she, you know, fresh squeezed orange juice, and when she gave it to me, she was like, oh, a fly landed in that when I was making it. You probably want to pull that out before you drink it. And I was just like, who would serve orange juice like that? I don't. And then when she came back to collect our plates, there was a maggot underneath his, and I was just like, so again, I just didn't eat here very much. And this place is an amazing place, and it's seen better days. There's a big restaurant down below that has never been open while I've been here. Everything feels like it's falling apart, but it's also very hippie, so it was never actually built all that well, but it did have a beautiful aesthetic. Some of these places are very expensive and very towards a Western mindset with air conditioning and sealed rooms, and the place I'm living in is very airy and rustic. So after I started going into town, I was buying more like dried things like pumpkin seeds and peanuts that are fried in chili, salt, lime, garlic, which I'd never had that kind of like roasted garlic, peanut, chili. It's nice. I bought 3 big bags of those when this fear panic spiral was starting, because I was like, I better hoard a little bit of food in case the food becomes a problem. And there was also a mention when I got here that food prices were more expensive in Mexico than they had been for many years. And since the lockdown has started globally, the peso has devalued something like 20% because it's connected to the oil prices. So the rent that I'm paying here is 6,000 pesos a month, which is about 200 pesos a night, which is about $10 a night. Now I do know that when I arrived, the 6,000 pesos was worth $324. It was 323. Blah, blah, blah. I sent that to a friend the day I checked in. I did the math and I was like, this is a pretty fucking beautiful view for $323 a night. But my bathroom is a walk up there, and I have to walk by trash, and there's, it's very rustic, and the bathroom, like, the toilet tank doesn't have a lid on it. There's 2 toilets there, but one of them doesn't have a seat. It's just a porcelain rim, which is very common here. But the other one does have a seat, so I sit there. And there are 2 showers. One of them didn't work at all, and the other one did work, but the corrosion of the water had rusted the shower head off. So it was just like a pipe coming out of the wall that poured out on me. And a few times that I've been here, the water has stopped working, and I can't take a shower or anything. And the woman here has told me repeatedly, like, oh, you use too much water when you take 2 showers a day. You're only allowed to take 1 shower a day. And I was like, honey, salt water on my skin for days on end doesn't feel good. And I've lived in like desert climates before. You have to watch water. I know how to take drizzled showers, but we don't communicate well. Anyway, lately it's been nice because I've been trying to just do love magic with her. Just, beaming kindness at her. So for the last 6 weeks, I'd say, month or more, I've been having, let's say, 1 papaya a week, 1 or 2 pineapples a week, a couple, let's say, 8 bananas a week. There's a woman who makes these little chocolate bonbons. And you can't see them. They're, I guess, peanuts and piloncillo, which is an evaporated cane juice sugar, and cacao nibs that she grinds up and puts a little cranberry in the top. And she sells 7 of them for 120 pesos to me. I think it's 130 for other people, but she's like, oh, because you're a regular customer, she gives me a discount. And she actually sold me a container once for only 100, which is nice. I notice if I eat 2, I have trouble sleeping in that same coffee kind of way, so I just eat 1 a day. And today I'm not having any because I've had coffee. When I went into Pachula, which is the town near here, I bought Mexican chocolate, which if any of you have ever had it, it's oh, there's Tom. Hi, Tom. Have you been here long, Tom, or did you just sign on recently? So I made this little nut mix of the chili roasted peanuts with the garlic, and then I broke up the Mexican chocolate, which is usually it's a coarse chocolate with coarse sugar grains in it. So you like feel the graininess of the sugar, and then I put a couple cacao nibs in it as well. So it's not too sweet, but we all have logic, right? My logic was like, well, if this coronavirus thing hits, I remember that chocolate's a really good bronchial dilator, so it'll keep my lungs open. So that's, I have to make sure I eat chocolate every day. Logic, So I've been eating chocolate every day with my peanuts, and it's very savory because there's a lot of salt and garlic and chilies. And then the cacao nibs make it bitter, and then the dark chocolate with all the sugar makes it sweet. So it's nice. So I usually have that almost every day around lunch. Like I wake up in the morning, and as many as you've noticed, I wake up usually before dawn, about an hour before the sunrise. And I often sit right here on the ground, although sometimes I go to other places, and I watch the sunrise over the water here, which is gorgeous, as some of you have seen. And during that period, I usually meditate in some way or another. I either do like Taoist meditations of moving energy around my body, cultivating, transforming, cleansing energies, or I just do a Buddhist meditation of just kind of sitting and letting everything drop out. And this morning I specifically was kind of just generating peace and kindness and clarity and gratitude and stuff, which sometimes I do before I get out of bed. But it's nice to do, like I close my eyes for a while, open my eyes, look out, close my eyes for a while, listen, open my eyes, look out. So there's different relationships with this area. And then after the sun has risen somewhat in the sky and I feel the warmth of the sun, I go down and meet my fellows on the beach that arrived here, I think March 30th or something. I know they arrived right before the town went into lockdown. And we do Qigong for an hour or 2 or 3 every morning, almost every morning. Last week I cut my foot, and it was also the new moon, so it was perfect. I spent the entire week alone up here, resting, hardly moving at all, which was nice. But as soon as I could walk again, which may have been yesterday or 2 days ago, Monday, I was very happy to be able to walk again. It was nice feeling to be able to walk, right? There have been times when I've been here where I would walk the length of the beach every morning, and on the other end of the beach is the Playa de Amor, which is like a more separate cove, and because of the way the sun rises, there would be a lot of shade there. So for a while, before these 2 guys arrived that I practice with now, I would practice there alone in the mornings. Anyway, I usually practice in the morning, sometimes 1 hour, sometimes 3, and then I come up here and I eat something. And while those guys were staying here, we would eat, me and one of the guys would eat together. The other one follows a more like bulletproof, aloha. He would follow a more like bulletproof coffee thing. He's been low carb, not exactly keto because he eats bread and stuff in the evening, but he does the intermittent fasting thing, which is interesting because he's like 24. He'll be turning 25 next week. But he's like, perfectly muscular. He's what everybody would find. I've told him, I'm like, you're lucky that you're not attractive to me because most gay men would go fucking apeshit over you because he's a tall, beautiful, blonde, perfectly cut, muscular Dutch guy, which has no power over me and no mystery for me. It's not a sexual turn on. I appreciate his beauty, but like a lot of guys would just be like drooling over him. And I'm just like, you're safe with me because I have a totally different attraction to people. But he's been doing these food experiments at his young age, which I think is really awesome. And the other guy was a vegan for 8 years, and when he arrived in Mexico, he decided he needed to start eating eggs and fish again, but still refuses to eat dairy. But we eat together. We would eat together and then talk, and then after midday, we'd usually go our separate ways. At this point, since they both moved out, I eat after Qigong and after eating the fruit. And sometimes if I cut up a whole papaya or a whole pineapple, I'll like eat some of it and then cut the rest of it up and let it sit there. And throughout the day, I'll just keep nibbling on it. But eventually I have my nut mix. And some days I skip the nut mix, but usually around lunch time, I'll have some nut mix. Some days I siesta. I have a hammock set up around here that I can be naked in. There are lots of hammocks here, but I'm not allowed to be naked here at this hotel thing I'm staying in. That's kind of the way that this town has grown up around the nudity thing, is that nudity is allowed on the beach, it's not allowed on the main street, and it's not allowed in most of the hotels, though there are some hotels here that allow nudity inside of them. And the beach isn't super sex positive, I would say, but a lot of the people who come here are Europeans that are used to European nude beach rules where you can just go in the rocks and fuck. And this guy was telling me that I've had a guy that I've recently been having some sex with here because we've been here for 3 months, so we're like, what do we have to worry about? And he was telling me that last year there were lots of Europeans after the nudist festival. They started having these big nudist festivals here. There would be people just fucking on the beach. And again, these are people who are used to coming to nude beaches in Europe where sex, there's not like the Catholic Church somehow didn't instill sex shame in the way that Puritanism did here in the New World. So the Mexicans really don't like watching people fuck on the open beach. But in these little coves, like that you can see down here and in the cove on the other side, there's often been a tradition of some kind of sexual activity after dark if you want to do it out in nature as opposed to in your room. But he was saying last year there were these straight people just having sex on the beach in the middle of the day, and last year was the first year they had some kind of police here, and the police would be like, you can't do that. Now the police have these quads, these four-wheelers, and they're policing people in other ways. So while I was down last week when I couldn't walk anywhere, I was ordering pizzas because I found there were places that delivered pizzas. One of them was called Gemini, and I ordered from them twice. And then there was another one called The Angel that the Dutch guy told me about, and that was much better. It was really, really delicious. But eating that much pizza was not wonderful for my body. I was like, oh, too much pizza. But, you know. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of food options right now. There's generally like 1 or 2 restaurants open during the week, and then 1 or 2 days, a smattering of other restaurants will open for a day or two, just for like evening or something. And a lot of restaurants are just doing the takeaway thing, but Mexico makes no pretense about recycling. So I don't want to buy any kind of container. I don't want to buy any kind of food that has some kind of container that's just going to add to landfill or pollute the ocean or something. So I haven't been doing any of the takeaway things. I've just been eating fruit in the morning. Sometimes I get bananas and avocados and I eat them in the afternoon. Besides food and qigong, actually there's another couple that I met recently who have been traveling around the world since, I don't know how long they've been together, but they've lived in Sri Lanka and Vietnam, and one of them is from South Africa, one is from France, and they asked me if I could teach them qigong, so I've taught them qigong a few times, and it's nice because they're still employed, they work through the internet, so they pay me when I teach them, and it's like 300 pesos that they gave me yesterday, which is, it's not like what you'd get paid in an American place, but it's something. And the 2 boys who I've been teaching, they don't have any money, so they can't pay me, and I totally am fine with that. But it's nice that these older couple are giving me a little bit of money. It just adds, like when people donate, it's very nice when people, whatever it is they send me, I'm always like, oh, it just feels nice to have a little bit of income trickling in, because again, I don't know when I'll be able to give a massage again. I don't need to get into that, but so I've been teaching them occasionally. They give me a little bit of money. They've asked me for a massage, and a couple of people have asked me for a massage, and it's kind of disturbing, and it makes me feel kind of weird in that I love giving massage, but I've been doing massage as my main source of income for 20 years, and here a massage costs like 200 pesos, or 300 pesos, or maybe 400 pesos. And there are some people who have advertised 1,000. Like at the base of Shambhala, there's a massage station where there's a menu, and one of the things says 1,000. But I talked to a girl, and she was like, oh, I got this amazing 3-hour massage for 900 pesos. And I was like, so 900 pesos would be like, maybe $50 or less than $50 or something. 3 hours, $50. I can't do that at this point. I mean, because I've been doing massage so long, I just don't feel comfortable doing that. And these people who have asked me to give the massage recently, they're like, what would you be comfortable with? And I was like, $1,000 or 1,000 pesos. 1,000 pesos again, it's like $50. But that's a lot here, There's a girl who gives like an hour and a half massage for 200 pesos, and I don't really want to take work away from them, nor do I feel like it's entirely worth my time to. I don't actually want to get a whole bunch of clients that I have to give massage to and get used to that lower level of income. I would really rather switch the way I make money into teaching as opposed to giving massage for a lot less money, just because it's more wearing on the body, and I've already done it for a long time, so I'm aware of having an expiration date. I've met people who are old men who have given massage their whole lives and their hands don't work anymore and stuff like that, and I'm like, I don't really need to do that to myself. I would like to transition into something else. Anyway, so then generally in the middle of the day, I'm alone. It gets really fucking hot here, and I don't wear sunblock, so I don't like going out in the sun in the middle of the day. There are always people, which I think is pretty fascinating, who go out in the middle of the day and lay naked in the sun, and I'm always just like, I couldn't do that. But then their skin turns totally brown, like Irish guys and Ukrainian guys, and I just think it's hilarious when I see these guys that are laying out in the heat of the day with sunblock on. So I don't wear sunblock. I don't go out in the middle of the day. I lay in my hammock up here naked, and sometimes I read books, sometimes I siesta, sometimes I just get lost in the internet, sometimes I do some writing. Like this station that I've set up here, there's a table, and I have a transcription project I've been working on of turning one of my old journals into digital, so I read it, type it out from one phone to another, and I have a Bluetooth keyboard, and sometimes I just write about ideas I have, and of course these video projects I've been doing now for a month, and I've been trying to stably do it at this time every day. I've encountered recently that the evening data traffic has made it impossible for me to post the last 2 Sundays, and yesterday it didn't work either, so I'm glad it's working right now. But otherwise I may switch to doing my broadcasts, these talking broadcasts in the morning, which I don't know if that would be as like In the morning, people more like want to do things. I don't know how much people want to sit around and watch things in the evening or in the morning, but I just know the data's clearer. So I'm going to try that next Sunday and see how that works out. The first 6 weeks I was here, I always made sure I jumped in the ocean twice a day. Again, it's cooling, so it would help me deal with the heat. And especially the first 2 weeks I was here, I came from winter in Indiana, winter in New York City, to Mexico City, which Mexico City is very high in the mountains. It's like 7,000 feet. So it would be like in the mid 70s during the day and down in like the 40s at night. So when I got down here, I was like, oh my God, it's so fucking hot. Because again, it's like 75 degrees at night and high 80s or low 90s during the day. So for the first few weeks I was here, it was like essential to get in the water as frequently as possible to cool me down. But the police at the beginning of this month started sweeping people off the beach. So it became unpleasant to be on the beach because the cops were always telling you weren't allowed to swim, you weren't allowed to be on the beach. And I understood why they were doing it because of the coronavirus, and they just didn't want local people. This was one of their big vacation times, the Semana Santa, the Holy Week for Easter. So they didn't want local people coming down here and having their big, huge party, because it's like one of the biggest parties, local people coming down here and filling up the beach. So they they closed all the beaches in Mexico and kept all of and they didn't want the spring breakers coming either, because they were trying to keep Mexico open for the spring breakers because it's a really good tourist time. But the only huge coronavirus explosion here happened in Cancun because all these spring breakers flooded down there and this coronavirus went crazy there. So they were like, nope, everybody's got to go home, and they stopped them. So I stopped swimming for a long time. Not just because the cops were being annoying, but then I cut my foot, and obviously it's not a good idea to go in the ocean when you have an open wound. So when I went swimming yesterday, I was just like, oh, this is so wonderful to be in this seawater again. It's so cold and it feels so good. And but I haven't jumped in the sea yet today. And the two guys that I've been teaching Qigong to, they're like, oh yeah, we haven't been in the sea for 2 weeks. One of them, in case you're interested, may be having his COVID situation right now. He was kind of like, I'm so sore this morning in practice. He's like, I'm so sore. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's just like, all my joints hurt and my muscles hurt. And I looked at his face and I could tell there was a lot of inflammation. Like his skin was red, his eyes were puffy. And I was like, huh, are you having headaches? And he said, yeah. And I was like, do you notice you're tired? And he said, yeah, I've been really just tired. Like I have no energy. And I was like, oh, well, I don't want to frighten you, but you have coronavirus. And he was like, oh. And I was like, yeah, that's what's happening right now. I have some medicine I made that I'll give you. And he was like, really? So, because I had it like a month ago, a little over a month ago now. So I was like, sleep as much as you can, take this tincture at least 3 times a day, and gargle it, and then swish it around your mouth for a minute, and then swallow it. And but he's 24, he'll be fine, I'm sure. But yeah, it's funny that most of the people here are totally in denial. They're just like, well, if it comes here, I'm like, honey, it's been here for like 2 months. So we see what we want to see, and we only can see what we can see. We all have beliefs about the world, and we can only see what we can see. But yeah, so then usually when it gets, even before I started doing these videos every day at this time, what I would usually do was walk down to the far side of the beach to watch the sunset. Because the first 6 weeks I was here, if I walked down to that side of the beach, I could watch the sun set into the sea. That's the east, this is the west, this is the west. So it was really nice to look out over the sea and watch the sunset into the sea. Because obviously if you've watched any of my morning broadcasts, I can just come here right outside of my room and watch the sun rise. When I first arrived here, the sun was rising over the sea, but now it's rising, where is it? Like, the sun is rising like here or something. It's moved very far north. So even going all the way down there, I can't see the sun set into the sea anymore. So I stopped doing it, and that's when I started doing this project, because I was like, I love the sunset, the colors are beautiful, but I can't actually see the sunset anymore. I can go like up onto the top of the hill here, and I can see the colors. And some of you saw that I did a broadcast from the top of Playa del Amor few weeks ago, I guess, to watch the sunset, and it's very pretty, but it's not the same as, I don't know. And also with the police on the beach, I tried to go down there once to watch the sunset, and they yelled at me. So I was just like, I can avoid it. So usually after I'm done with these broadcasts, sometimes I meet up with the guys I do Qigong with, and we go see movies. There's a cinema here, and we have some food together. Again, I don't usually eat late. So when I was ordering pizzas here last week, I would have them delivered around 4:30 or something, and I would eat it then, and then I'd do the broadcast, and then I'd usually take a shower. I would take like my evening shower, and I would meditate a while, and then I would do my Duolingo, which I've been doing for over 2 years now, but for the last few months, obviously, or the last 5 months, 6 months, I've been doing it in Spanish as opposed to Italian. Read books. I just downloaded a bunch of stuff from Netflix last week. So I've been trying to watch some movies and stuff on Netflix. Sometimes I listen to Qigong CDs, recordings that I have, CDs or videos. And sometimes I just read. And sometimes I just go to sleep. And it's funny, sometimes I go to sleep at 9, and sometimes I go to sleep at midnight. And sometimes when I go to sleep at 9, I sleep through till dawn. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I come out and watch the stars for a while. And then I go back to bed for a while, and then I get up and watch the sunrise. And that's really about it. Now, some days when I get lost in the internet, it's not getting lost in the internet, it's talking to people. I have a local SIM card, which I have explained in various places, that whole net neutrality thing people were talking about a few years ago. I haven't noticed it so much in the United States, but it's really noticeable here that like basically Facebook has bought the internet here. So I cannot get an unlimited data plan through any of the networks that I am aware of here in Mexico. But if I pay over a certain amount, I have unlimited social networks. So I have unlimited Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, Snapchat, and Twitter. Unlimited, but not for video calls. And I don't even think for audio calls. I think just for texting, sending pictures. And if I'm watching videos or broadcasting videos on Facebook, because it's creating content for them and their advertisers, then they pay for the internet stream. And it's very fast, as you can tell. I can broadcast HD. And the internet here, the first, I guess, month and a half I was here, the internet was so shitty. Like, so often I would try to watch a video on a Wi-Fi or on my thing, and it just wasn't working, except on Facebook. Like, Facebook worked fine, but I hadn't made the connection at that point yet that it had a higher speed data pipe than the rest of the internet. The first month I was here, I was just like, whatever. But I only have 6 gigabytes a month of the rest of the internet, and it's really slow and shitty. And any of the Wi-Fi I've used in town has been really slow and shitty, except the internet cafe downtown. But even hey, like, it can be really fast, like 3 megabits, which is, for America now, that's not as fast as it once was, because you have like 100 megabits now and shit like that. Gigabit connections, not gigabit, I don't know. Not gigabit, I don't think, but 100 megabits or 50 megabits. Here it's like 3 or 4. And even then, there are data loads that the whole entire network slows down. So sometimes the phone, like I have unlimited calls to US, Canada, and Mexico. So sometimes I would just, like I've been so used to using digital phone calls for years, and now I can't do that because I have such limited data on them. So I've been calling people, and sometimes I just can't maintain a conversation with them. And as some of you have seen, even if I pay for the high-speed network, the traffic is just overloaded and the networks don't work. So the last few nights I haven't been able to broadcast. Switching to Wi-Fi lets it work a little bit, but my phone, my SIM card, it will say I have 4G, and as soon as I try to use it, it'll switch to 3G, and then it will cut down to Edge, and then nothing works. So that's the technology reality here. I came here via bus, so I flew into Mexico City from New York City for $180, and I bought the ticket, I think, a week before I left. People had told me for years that flying to Mexico City was very cheap, but I just had never done it. And I was like, holy shit, that was so cheap. I should have been coming here for years. Mexico City is beautiful. And I traveled around by bus the first few weeks, up in the mountains, going to see hot springs and ruins of ancient civilizations. It was amazing. totally fucking beautiful. If you guys have never been to Mexico, highly recommend it. As long as you stay away from the gigantic tourist towns, you won't have to deal with a lot of crime and nightmare stuff that you've been told about that has kept me away from Mexico for years. And then I took a bus down here, which was very long, but a man who's been coming here since the 70s suggested that he was like, if this is your first time in Mexico, you should take buses around, because then you'll see the landscape. And I'm like, oh, I prefer sticking to the land anyway, even though it's longer. You know, I would read a book, watch movies, whatever, and look out the window and watch the cactuses roll by, the hills, the gorgeous views, the switchbacks. So it was nice. I came down here via Oaxaca City, where I spent a few days and saw the ancient ruins around there, Monte Alban, and ate some good food and went to a bathhouse. There's a lot of bathhouse culture here, which I think was even more prevalent in old world Europe that doesn't exist as much anymore. I mean, I think it still exists in Istanbul. I remember that's the only other place I've encountered it so much. But in Mexico City, in Puebla, in Oaxaca City, there are just public baths you can use, that you can go and just take a steam bath, take a sauna, nice showers, and there's always people giving massages there. And some of them are more known to be cruisy if you're that kind of person, and some of them are just more outright for men, gay type thing. But it was really cool to see those cultures and those old things, the old tile works. It was really, really cool. And the hot spring river that I went to is amazing. This place called Grutas Tolatango, which is just, it's a little overdeveloped, but everything is nowadays, really. But it was one of the most amazing hot springs I've ever been to. It's like the holy grail of hot springs. If you're a hot spring person, it was wonderful. And not terribly expensive. But again, if you were going to spend 3 months there, it would be expensive. And this town is generally more expensive than what I've been paying. I've been very lucky, but I've had to deal with the weird, like, crumbling hippie paradise reality, which I'm fine with, really, crumbling hippie paradises. Hi, Dave. Yeah, so sometimes I talk to people. Again, since I've learned that I can turn on a high-speed data pipe for 2 hours for 66 cents, I use that to upload the videos to YouTube. And like these videos that I make, when they're about an hour, they're about a gigabyte or something. And when I upload them to Facebook, I think it recompresses them into their own codec, but I can upload an hour-long video when I've had to turn on the high-speed data pipe in usually about 10 minutes or less, which I find amazing, because if I try to use the Wi-Fi, it says that it'll take 36 hours. So I have a much higher data pipe uploading when I pay for the high-speed internet, which is pretty great. And so I do that sometimes to have like group FaceTime with my parents, and a friend of mine in Italy has been doing free Spanish lessons with his friends, who are all like sex workers and crazy poets and DJs and shit and strippers. It's wonderful, crazy people. So he's been like teaching us Spanish and like all the swear words and the dirty words and this having people practice things and be like, okay, now tell us what you like. And like one of his friends is like, me gusta chupar pollas. and he like corrects the way she pronounces things. And it's funny because I'm in Mexico, which pronounces a lot of the Spanish words very different than they do in Spain. So he'll sometimes correct me and I'll be like, no, it's not corazón here, it's corazón. Yeah. But as I said, I have bought a ticket to fly back to America. I'm not exactly certain what I'm going to do in America. I like the idea of teaching people regularly. I really like that here. I just don't feel like staying here indefinitely is a good idea. The world's in this transition period right now, and I feel I'd probably be better off in the United States, but I don't know. Obviously, commerce is changing, and for someone like me, who has always kind of been outside of the regular commerce system anyway, my aim is to try to live at a commune, which has been on the books for me for the last 4 years anyway. I've lived on a commune a couple times, but one of the biggest life-changing experiences I had was living on a commune in Northern California that was also a massage school. And that's what allowed me to take the skill and talent I already had for 10 years and turn it into something I could make money. And I learned tons of other things there about herbs and cooking and just relating to people on so many different ways. Yoga, I learned so much there. It was amazing. But it was a retreat center school, and that's what it was for, you know. And I think it cost me $200 to submit my application in there, and then I worked there for 9 months and just did work trade. And I actually ended up making some money working in their little store for a while too. But there's another like gay commune in the mountains of Northern California that's also a retreat center. It's not exactly a school, but it's been a school and it has some of those leanings. But it got shut down last year. It's been there for 4 years. So I may go see if I can live there. And there's a couple other options. So, and also with all of this paranoia right now and just fear, there's just such pervasive fear right now. I don't know how that's going to open up. There's a Buddhist place I've been going to a lot of meditation retreats, and I may see if I can get a job there, because I think at this point I have transformed my sexual energy and my relationship to sensuality somewhat enough to feel okay living there. But when I first went there, I was totally freaked out by their lack of sensuality. But now I've brainwashed myself enough to understand why that's just fine, because, you know, sensual attachments just causes suffering. However, I am at a nude beach. I'm still a pretty sensual person compared to the average Joe, I think. But I've also had a dream for many years to like live with gay couples and maybe like guys who have farms of one sort of or another, and work on the farms with them, or work and then teach them qigong or yoga in the morning, and occasionally give massages or whatever. I just like the idea of teaching more, so I want to be in an environment that allows me to teach more and make my living that way, even if it's not economy-based even if it's not money-based for a while, if it's just trade for living and working, living and eating, that's fine. I don't know. We'll see how it all works out. But probably I'll fly back into New York City, get my laptop, visit the doctor, and then either visit some friends around that area, like I may visit some friends in Massachusetts and New York State, maybe even Pennsylvania, and slowly work my way across. But now is just so not a time to do that, I don't think. But who knows what'll happen by the end of next month, right? And a lot of the people here who have tried to fly out, they buy a ticket, and then the flights get canceled and pushed back and canceled and rescheduled and canceled. There's one guy who's he's been canceled and rescheduled like 6 times and just extended. So even though I bought a ticket for the 23rd, which somebody told me is Memorial Day weekend, I totally am out of touch with those kind of things. So I was like, I might not be flying on that day, and we'll just see what the world is doing at that point, and if I come back to America, and then what happens. But that's basically what my life is like here. I know that during the beginning, like in mid-May, during the beginning of the lockdown panic spiral, I got really wrapped up in the anxiety and fear, and I was looking at the news every day. Hello, Michael! I was looking at the news every day and worrying about all my friends in Europe and all my friends in America, and just the zombie apocalypse and the collapse of the infrastructures of the economy and the oil industry and all those things. And I basically had to stop looking at the news and uncurl myself from those conversations. And I think my nervous system has also just adapted to this type of panic, like a lot of us have. We've just kind of adapted to, like, this is the new reality. Stay at home, you might die. Which that's always been the case. You know, you never know when you might die. You might have an aneurysm at any minute. Oops. You know, you never know. You might get hit by a car. Less likely right now because not many people are driving. But life's inherently dangerous, and we're all gonna die someday. So I was telling this to some fellow that I was chatting with last night after watching The Fifth Element at the cinema, which is super fun, great movie, hopeful. That I was telling him that I'm not somebody who's super afraid of dying, because I've always assumed, I know that I'm going to die anyway, and I thought I was going to die really young because I was raised in the AIDS years. And when I hit my mid-20s, I realized I wasn't going to die of AIDS, and I was like, oh, I'm going to be an old man. And as soon as that happened, it gave me this totally different perspective on life. And I still have that about this coronavirus thing, where I'm like, this isn't what's going to kill me. I'm going to be an old man, so I don't have to worry about this. But I, of course, am worried. I'm worried I try not to worry because that's not super useful. I'm certainly concerned and interested in what the world is transforming into. And the world certainly needs to transform because the way it's been going hasn't really been so hopeful. Like, it's just been getting kind of like more and more and more of a corrupt shit show. So it'll be really great if that somehow changes. There was a song that came out a few years ago that this girl was like, things are gonna get better, cause they can't get worse. And I was like, girl, you have no idea how much worse things can get. But we have a lot of room for improvement. So things are definitely gonna get better. Though they can get worse, there's a lot of room for improvement. So I'm excited. I am somewhat hopeful, which is not usually my state of being, but I did say to somebody last night that I generally have no faith in the future or no expectations in the future. And I noticed how that is an unhealthy statement. I mean, after giving him my whole spiel about how I've never been able to make things happen when I try to, but yet things manifest within my desire structure often in my life, I was like, oh, I need to untangle that because it's not a useful, it's a really bad phrase to say into the reality, like, I have no faith in the future. One of the magic spells I've been using on myself for the last few years, I had a heartbreak situation and I just had to repeat to myself over and over and over every time I thought about him. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you love him. It doesn't matter that you can't live without him. It doesn't matter that, you know, there was so much potential and it's never going to happen. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There's no future. And I just kept saying that over and over. And then every time I met somebody that I kind of fell in love with, because again, it was my habitual habit to fall in love with people when I met them, I would just be like, there's no future. There is no future. There is no future. And although that has protected me somewhat in from my habit of self-hurting emotional habituation, whatever you want to call it, in describing all this to this guy yesterday, like afterwards I noticed how it made my heart feel, and I'm like, that's unhealthy. That's an unhealthy emotional coping strategy. Somebody asked me today, like, how are you coping through all this? So that's part of what this talk is about as well. It's an unhealthy emotional coping strategy. We've all got them. How's your cocktails tonight, honey? You know, we all have different ones. One of the guys that I'm teaching Qigong to, he keeps saying he's going to quit smoking pot, and he smokes so much pot that he can't remember anything, which is one of the reasons I don't smoke pot, because I like to be able to remember things. And I try to teach him things. He just can't remember any of the names. He can't remember the order of anything. He can't remember the content of anything. And I'm just like, why are you? And he keeps like, I keep trying to quit, and I just go buy more. I give it away, and then I go buy more. So I'm like, you know, we all have our unhealthy coping strategies. And again, being kind with ourselves about that is very important. And there is a very delicate hand about fixing our unhealthy coping strategies because they are holding us together. One of my friends, one of my fairy godmothers, when I was 20, she said, honey, they're called vices because they're what hold us together. You take away all of our vices, we become like a total fucking basket case. And I was like, oh, that's nice. I never knew that that's why they were called vices, because they hold us together. But yeah, it's interesting. I have a couple tools for working with that, and I haven't addressed it today, except right now in talking to you about it, Mom. Sir, teacher, student, friend. But it's something I gotta work on. Anyway, I think that's enough. Any of you guys who are still there, do you have any questions or just comments about how your day is? How are you guys? What's going on with you? What are your unhealthy coping strategies? What's your unhealthy emotional coping habits? Or anything else you want to talk about? Let's sing an old Radiohead song. Red wine and sleeping pills help me get back to your arms. Cheap sex and sad films help me get back where I belong. I think you're crazy, maybe. Anyway, yeah, Joseph, I saw your paintings on Instagram today. Some of them are really fucking beautiful. Like that landscape with the car driving through the road, through the mountains, the weird like cubist perspective, like angular distortion field you put over it was fucking awesome, I thought. I really liked the play you're doing with your paintings. It's great. Props. There was a Tom York, I was going to talk about this earlier when I was talking about food. There was a Tom York piece of art that I saw in my teenage years. Yeah, it's always nice to hear the waves. Oh, nice. I'm glad you're drawing. Dibujas. Yeah, Ricardo, I bet there's so much good food being cooked. One of my friends whose birthday it also is today, who's up in the mountains of New York right now, having fled the city, he every day just posts pictures of the amazing meals he's making for his husband and friend who are sheltering in place up at their country house. And it's just like constant like cakes and pork loins and all just gorgeous, gorgeous food. And I'm like, yeah, I really wish I were with someone who loved cooking. But that's kind of, again, back to what I was just going to talk about. Tom York put this art piece on, they had really weird websites back in the 90s, the Radioheads, and they had this image that showed two people, it was like a little line drawing of two people sitting together at a table, and in big block letters underneath it, it said, "If you don't take me out to dinner, I don't eat." And I really liked it, but I also noticed years later that I've always had this relationship with food where I know I have to eat or I will be very unhappy. I will get very unhealthy and I will feel kind of manic and ungrounded and my body will feel fucked up, which I know now is like low blood sugar and whatever else. But I eat because I have to. Very often I don't give a fuck about food. I mean, I like good food. I appreciate good food. I am a sensualist person, but it's really not my priority. So, if I'm with people that, like when I was with my parents last year, I got fat right away because they eat so much more than I do. And it was like constant snacks, constant cookies, constant lemon bars and pies and cakes and like just 3 meals a day. So I'd wake up and my mom would be like, "Do you want me to make you eggs?" You know, and there were eggs from her chickens out in the barn. So it was like, yeah. And she'd put like broccoli and cheese in it and oregano. And it was just like, I was like, yeah, why not eat? You know, if you're eating good food and you're eating with someone, oh my God, yeah, food is great. But being alone here, it's so easy for me to be like, whatever, I have to eat to survive or my body will be unhappy, so I'll just, stay to the minimum caloric intake that I need. And I also don't like the feeling of being overly full. Although, when I lived in New York City, I would go through waves of eating very little for many days. I would have like granola and yogurt and fruit, nuts, whatever, very little for many days. And then I would go out to eat with my friends, bear friends, and I'd go out to eat with them and just like, and they'd be like, "I can't believe you eat so much." And I'd be like, "Well, the rest of the week I hardly eat anything." So again, if I'm eating sympathetically with someone else who enjoys eating, it makes the food so much more fun to eat. And if I'm eating with someone who loves cooking, then it's like making love with them. They're making delicious food to put in my body and it's delicious. So I think about that little art piece that I saw years ago so often. If you don't take me out to dinner, I don't eat. I just don't. It's just not that important to me if I can't share it with someone. And in my years as a depressive, that was something I often noticed, like how sad I would be that there was no one to eat with. I'm like, I don't want to eat because I don't want to eat alone, which I know a lot of people have that. The sadness of eating alone, it's like a weird thing, The word companion means someone you share bread with, for those of you who don't know that already. I remember the first time someone told it to me, it totally blew my mind. I was like, a companion is someone you share bread with. But what if I'm gluten-free? Who can I eat with? No, I'm not gluten-free. But yeah, I'm glad that you guys are creative in that way. I'm very grateful that there are some people who enjoy watching me make these videos. I really like it when people send me messages and telling me that some of these videos have really helped them. So even in these videos where you guys are just sending me messages as I do it, it feels nice. And I do, pretty regularly get people writing me messages telling me about some of the teaching videos that have just really helped them, make them understand things. This is my creative output right now, so I'm very grateful for that, for your appreciation. What's awkward, Joseph? Joseph's like, it's awkward. Is it awkward that I'm complimenting you and being grateful and thanking you? We're eating alone. Is that what's awkward? I love you too. I eat dinner with mashed potatoes by the light. The switch is on. I eat leftovers. Michael, aren't you Italian? What is that? Aren't you Italian, Michael? Oh yeah, awkward, eating alone. Yeah, when I lived in New York, I would go through these phases. Again, a lot of people think of me as being like this healthy person. When I lived in New York, and again, I was very depressive, I went through these periods where being in New York was very unhealthy for me in some ways, and it was healthy for me in others, but very unhealthy for me in some ways. There was a couple years that I was like living off of potato chips and ice cream and chocolate when I was alone. Like it was just like the worst food. I would like go buy snack food and just that's what I'd eat when I was alone because I was minimum caloric input and vitamins and fuck it, Yeah, it is awkward to eat alone a lot of the time, and there's a relationship of cooking, that's about sharing. So I know a lot of people who love cooking. Michael, you're part Italian, I guess. Pino, Michael Pino, and Michael Lindsay. Michael Pino, you're are you part Caribbean as well? I love that you're still traveling the grapevine, Mr. Martin. It's wonderful. I love that people are keeping the world going, just in their whatever way they're doing it. They're keeping their life going in whatever way they're doing it. Thank you for keeping your life going. Thank you for keeping the world going. I don't know if any of you have ever been into psychedelics, but when I was giving a lot of people salvia divinorum for a few years in New York City, in part of the prep I would give them, I would say, you might feel like the world is disintegrating. I often do, but don't worry. I will hold reality together for you, and when you come back, it'll still be here. You may have changed, but the world will still be here. We're holding it together for you. So thank you, people who are holding the world together for all of us. You're 100% Italian. It's amazing. You're welcome, Mr. Faulkner. Much love to you. All right, anything else? Or shall we bid adieu? Do you want to just watch the sea for a while? Should I walk away and just let you have a little bit of peace and quiet? Without the parrot? That's what the Spanish, the Latin Americans call the chatterbox people. They call them parrots. El lorito. Soy un loro. Soy un lorito. Yes, we have parrots. Jorge and Robert Tucker just showed up. Robert, I answered all the questions. Well, I answered the question you asked me today. Robert Tucker was part of what inspired me to do today's talk. So I'll be done with this. I'll turn this posting off very soon, and you can watch it from the beginning. And it answers what, the quotidian days of what I'm doing. Thank you, Michael Lindsay. Good night to you. Peace and love. Hello, Jorge Clar. Good night to you. Peace and love. Buenas tardes. I guess if you guys have any questions, you who just showed up, I'll sit and talk for a moment more. We have a little bit of light left in the evening. Good night, Tom. Tom, you should watch this from the beginning too. I had said a couple days ago in one of the broadcasts that didn't work that even in the weird uncertainty we're in right now, and the fact that the police are trying to keep everybody off the beach, often in the morning before the police come out, the bay not fills up, but there's like 15 surfers out there in the water. And I always will hear them going, "Woo!" like howling in joy. And every evening, even though the police just kicked everybody off the beach, every evening about the time that I start these videos, there's a bunch of locals, Mexican boys playing football on the beach. Sometimes in multiple places, but in this cove that's really close to me, they're playing football. So it is one of the things that I really enjoy about being here is there's life is still happening in a way. It's one of the reasons I loved living in New York City is that I could walk around and see life happening. I could see people on the street doing whatever it is they do. And I've always been really impressed by people who feel life has a meaning and a purpose. And they're just motivated by their meaning and purpose. So again, like I enjoy people who enjoy eating, I enjoy seeing that people enjoy surfing, people enjoy swimming, people enjoy sunbathing, people enjoy playing football. It's like worshiping at other people's churches, like if I go to church with someone who really likes the church experience, I can kind of vibe, again, sympathetically or empathetically with the people who enjoy those experiences. And I don't know if I've ever said this before. I have often said that I have sex with people just so I can talk to them about their innermost feelings and then cuddle with them. Although I obviously have at various points really loved sex as well. But I have noticed many times that I enjoy eating with people who enjoy eating because I'm sympathetically vibing up how much they love food. I love having sex with people who love sex in a way that I can relate to because I'm vibing off how much they really enjoy that. It's like when you have sex with someone is super attracted to you and you have any kind of attraction to them, then you kind of just have this echo chamber of like, oh, you're really hot and this is wonderful. And they're like, you're really hot. And then you feel that, you feel their enjoyment of you. That's one of the things that I miss is feeling someone's enjoyment of me. So again, with the people that I talk to on here, like feeling your appreciation of me, even though we're apart by hundreds or thousands of miles, I still feel you. So thank you very much. And people watching, it's just so nice to watch people, the mystery of why people do anything, what they're doing, just wondering and enjoying their weird fashion choices and their mannerisms. And sometimes it's horrifying, but it's still very entertaining. So this is your people watching, Joseph. You just get to watch me. The sky's really pretty again. We've got some nice clouds coming in. All right. Jorge didn't say anything. Robert didn't say anything. Fine. Be that way. I'm gonna log off now, save this video, and probably tomorrow I will upload these last few videos to YouTube. Probably. Love you. Good night. Great people.